All right, you guys thought you could get rid of us? No, StreamYard, you could not get rid of us. We started our StreamYard, who we do this, the great company that we use to stream every day, went down at like 5 minutes before 1. So we apologize, but we're back up and running, and I'm sitting in my Game of Thrones chair, as you can see here. It's like,
I can see that, yeah.
It's like I went to Twitter to find out that StreamYard was out, and then the only thing I'm thinking of, what if Twitter is out? Then you'll never find out what's out.
I know. So this was a Halloween thing that we got. It's really funny. It's company sent me this, and they're like, "Oh, put this on your thing," because one of the companies that I work with that does all kinds of that sends me all kinds of cool things. So I was the first to have one of these, so it's really kind of fun. So
Nice.
it's one of those things that I feel like, finally I'm justified. It gives me the power that I've deserved all these years, so I'm going to stick with it.
So
I think you're sitting on all your power, but that's just me.
Go ahead, Russ. Russ got something to say.
Oh, yes.
All right. So Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard was traded to the New York Mets when Sandy Alderson was with the Mets, and they made this trade with the Toronto Blue Jays, and he turned out to be the jewel of the trade. It was with Travis d'Arnaud and all that. I'm not going back to ancient history, but about a month and a half, 2 months ago, when asked by the New York media, hey, Noah, who only pitched 2 innings this year because he come off arm surgery, what if the Mets made you a qualifying offer? He was like, I would be extremely grateful if they did that. But let's just see what happens, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. So the Mets make him the qualifying offer. He doesn't answer, and then he signs with another team for a couple $1 million more, about 2.6 million more. And there's 2 problems with this thing. The first one is, Syndergaard is a great user of Twitter, and if the Mets had not extended him a qualifying offer, I guarantee you he would have said, you know what, I wanted to come back, but, this is not my choice. It was great playing for you fans in New York, and see ya. And everybody would have felt bad for him and mad at the Mets, right? So now this is a situation where everybody's mad at him and mad at the Mets. Why are they mad at the Mets? Because Stephen Cohen led everybody to believe he would spend more money than the Wilpons, and Sandy Alderson perpetuated the lie with the GM meeting, saying that the luxury tax was not going to be an impediment to signing players this season. Well, it is, because already you got outbid on one of your own homegrown guys, and it's only for 1 year. So the risk is low, even if he got hurt again. And at the end of the day, their pitching staff has a gigantic hole in it now. It's just a bad day for the Mets. Like, they're the second worst team in their division now.
And Kevin, the only thing I could think of is, because Russ and I were talking about this before the show, is that Syndergaard wanted a multi-year deal from the Mets, and they were only prepared to offer him the qualifying offer. He's coming off arm surgery, so he says, if I'm going to take a 1-year contract from somebody, it's not going to be from the Mets. It's going to be where I can make the most money that I can, because I don't know about my future based on the fact that he had Tommy John, didn't he? Right? Didn't he? Right? Yeah. So, and Russ was on Sirius, and was it Boomer that brought up the?
No, it was Mick Kern. So Mick Kern brought this up, and he said, "What differs between this and the John Tavares situation with the Islander fans?" And I said, "What differs is this basic video that leads you to believe that Syndergaard wanted to come back if offered. Well, the offer was made, and he didn't come back. To me, that was the big difference.
And the difference here is, Kevin, is that this is a true backstab, while John Tavares, I will say to my dying day, was not a backstab of the Islanders. It was the fact that the Islanders screwed up and wasted most of the first 7 years of his career with the incompetent ownership and general managership of Garth Snow. And when he had an opportunity to go someplace else, he took the opportunity. He served his penance. He was a free agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tavares is more like Zach Parise in my mind, where he had an opportunity to go back to his hometown team.
Right.
And not everybody wants to do that. A lot of athletes have no interest in going back and doing all that. They don't like that idea very well. But Tavares and Parise did. Parise's parents still lived in the Minnesota area at the time, and I think that's the comparison. Yeah, the Syndergaard situation, I don't know what it is, but even though there's plenty of evidence to suggest that pitchers can come back from arm surgery and do quite well, there's still a reluctance. I live in Detroit, where there's a lot of fans who are concerned about Spencer Turnbull. Whether he'll ever be the same pitcher that he was, prior to going in for Tommy John surgery. Yet, I look around the league, and there's plenty of guys who are doing well after Tommy John. I don't know.
Did well for 6 years, and then had a little forearm mishap this last offseason. But if DeGrom didn't get Tommy John, he wouldn't be Jacob DeGrom right now.
Well, I think the hesitancy that Kevin is talking about in regards to teams and pitchers is term of deal.
Term, yes.
The Yankees were more than willing to give Corey Kluber an opportunity last year, but they only signed him after he'd been hurt for 2 years. But they only signed him to a 1-year contract. Same thing. Verlander may get a 2-year deal wherever he is, but he's Verlander. He's won Cy Youngs. He's won World Championships, so he deserves a little extra consideration. But most of these teams, they are leery. Very, very, wary, of signing an injured pitcher to a long-term contract.
The last thing I'll say about it is, I think it's a lot of these older GMs that feel this way in the sense that they don't want to get burned on a term deal with a pitcher because he might get hurt. You can't sign a great pitcher anymore and worry about the pitcher getting hurt. They're all going to get hurt. They're all going to miss games. That is the nature of the position now.
Just a quick thing. I think it's humorous. If you think that superstition is dead in sports, watch. You would have noticed last night watching Russ's favorite show, the Peyton and Eli Manning show.
Oh, I thought you meant Moonshiners. Okay, no.
On ESPN2, there is something now known as the Manning curse, meaning every player who has been on that show the following week has lost. And last night they did not have one current player on. They had Phil Mickelson, they had Phillip Rivers, and they had a couple other people. They had no active players on there. So NFL players are like, no, until
nobody has the guts now.
We really have to do a show on superstition at some point, like when we're done, when we're looking for something to do, because that we've done it before, I think, but that's a lot. I mean, there's so many great superstitions.
And of course, the Peyton and Little Brother show has such a long history about this as well. That's
it's 6 weeks. I know.
6 weeks. There you go.
But still, I mean, it's unbelievable how that superstition has already. Yeah. Like if Josh Allen loses to the friggin' Jacksonville Jaguars, that speaks to how powerful this superstition is.
Yeah, really interesting. All right, so let's get going. Here we go. All right, I'll share my Bob story another day. All right, ready? Hello, Hockey World. It is Tuesday, November 16th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and where the hell is my couch?
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen from Hockey Buzz in a construction still.
You got construction going on too? Excellent.
Yeah.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. And I, later today, am going to start getting my ice rink ready, folks. This is the time.
Oh, the squirrels are mad.
Oh, the foxes.
So so what I've done this year is last year at the end of the year I was on this website called untilgone.com, which has like really cheap deals on once in a while. Really good website, untilgone.com. And for some reason they were advertising a 20 by 40 foot event tent, like you would have like for a wedding, like a 20 by 40 foot event tent. My rink is 20 by 40 feet. And when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? Every year, what I try to do is I try to make it so I can like shade the rink, from the sun. Try to make it so I can make things, keep the snow off and stuff like that. So I bought that event tent last year for like $400, which is like amazing. They're like $2,000 tent. And I've been waiting all year to build it around my rink and put it up and make it so I have like it's the top thing. It's like one of those. It's like a soft top, so I can take it off if I want to, or I can put it over. But the idea is it'll be really easy to like shade it and really easy to keep my ice going longer.
Have you looked at the current weather report?
Yeah.
So you know it's going to be 61 tomorrow and 70 on Thursday.
That's why I'm doing it now. Yes, of course. No, I'm not expecting ice yet, Russ.
Russ,
I also don't want to build this in 30-degree weather either.
He's building a swimming pool that will be a rink.
So I'm okay building it in this. So I'm really kind of excited, but it's the beginning of Eck versus Mother Nature that happens every year, which is like my wife calls it like my Noah's Ark. She calls the rink. That I'm out there all the time, just like trying desperately to get it going. So this is the beginning. The beginnings start now. And I was and my wife, of course, is terrified that I'm she's going to end up coming home from work and I'm going to be buried underneath something out there that I've killed myself, on trying to put the thing together. So I went to a website called Hire a Hunk. If you heard, or Hunk. No, that was
wait a second.
That was for something else. No, this was called College Hunks. And I went to College Hunks and don't go to Hire a Hunk. collegehunks.com and they basically are there. They'll come, they get these guys in college who come and help you do anything. They can pay them like a couple bucks an hour and they come and help you build it. So I'm going to that's going to be my project later today.
I'm not touching that one. Let's talk.
Don't call Dan.
All right, but anyway, why I bring this up,
there was
a reason. Where I was trying to go with this is speaking of building things and not building things well, but building things that you think are going to be straight. Let's talk about the Vancouver Canucks, who today are. Apparently, according to Elliot Friedman, there's a meeting going on now with ownership and.
Let me preface this because the Canucks were on a road trip, and it came out that Francisco Aquilini, the owner of the team, was on the road trip, and everybody was reading a lot into that, Kev. But then it was released that it was planned that he was going to be on this trip, so it wasn't like he was going on the trip to fire everybody if they lost another game. Now that this news has come out, I know that Elliot Friedman said that it doesn't mean that somebody's going to get fired. It means that, they're trying to find out what the current direction of the team is. Well, Russ and I were talking about this yesterday. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who we thought would be a key to this team having success, in 16 games has a goal and 2 assists. They're in trouble. This team's in trouble.
Yeah, and Elliot Friedman, first of all, is such a good reporter that take him at his word. If he says this is not a meeting to fire anybody, I'm sure that it's not because he has very good connections to that Vancouver team. But
don't you think also? They're not going to ever say this is a meeting to fire somebody. They're going to.
No, but he would know. But Elliot would know.
Okay.
If it was like one of those type situations. But saying all that, it's just an odd type of thing. Doesn't everyone sort of understand what's wrong with the team? Do you need a meeting?
I know.
So, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd guess it's a meeting to talk about, is there anything we can do to correct this now? Is there something we should be doing? Should we be aggressive? Should we make a trade? Should we, call people up? This is my position as an owner in terms of, I don't want to wait and be patient. I want to be ultra aggressive. So, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but, the fact that everybody knows this meeting is going to happen means that there is at least something that ownership wants to get across.
There is one big problem, Kev, that's not been talked about a lot on that team, and that is Travis Hamanek. So Travis Hamanek may be vaccinated, may not be. They sent him down to the AHL. He didn't play. And then they activated him, but he couldn't go. The reason they sent him down to the AHL is because he couldn't go on the road trip.
Right.
Nobody knew why he couldn't go on the U.S. road trip. Did he not go on the U.S. road trip because he was unvaccinated, or did he not go on the U.S. road trip because he was unhealthy? Don't know. But then he gets sent to Abbotsford. He doesn't play there either. So
if he's
there, he doesn't play. Then they activate him again.
Right.
Russ,
something's going on with Travis Hamanek.
Russ, if he's unvaccinated, he can't play in Canada. That was the whole thing.
Well, he hasn't played, Mike, so that may be true, but nobody will say whether he's vaccinated or not, or hurt or not, but he's not playing. That's the point, and they need him.
Yeah, there has been a lot about that in Vancouver hockey now. It's kind of discussed all that. But here's what I would say about that. I agree with you that there is something going on there. But isn't there always with Travis Hamanek? There's
always
family concerns, and
it's a shame. I don't know.
Yeah, but he's not the difference.
No, he's not. The Canucks. the Canucks are bad offensively and they're bad defensively. I mean, like the reality is, like, I mean, it's not hard to see what's wrong with them. They're, you know, they're the fifth worst team defensively. You know, only the like Canadiens, Senators, Kraken, and Blackhawks are worse defensively.
Well, Hamanek has played 4 games and all 4 were at home. So it's weird because if he's unvaccinated, he'd be able to play in the U.S. Maybe it's a fact that he wouldn't be, and maybe it's a border situation. I don't know.
But he's not the issue. I mean, he's not the issue.
No.
Well, that's the thing. It's a weird situation, but in the context of this discussion, I don't think he's, you know, in the top.
You don't think he helps their defense? No, he definitely would help their defense.
Well, okay. Here's the issue. I was taken aback after we talked a couple weeks ago about Thatcher Demko being in the loop for Team USA. I mean, he's taken a turn for the worse lately because his goal against is 3.33. His save percentage is under 900. Now, it's only 12 games. He has 2 good games, and he's back to having pretty good stats. But, you know, that's sort of symptomatic. And Russ and I were talking about this. Elias Pettersson, only 9 points in 16 games. Connor Garland's playing well, but Bo Horvath only has 10 points. Brock Besser only has 8 points in 13 games. Like the guys who are supposed to score are not scoring enough to cover up their defensive problems.
But here's the thing, also, Mike. I mean, like shots wise, they've taken the third most shots in the NHL. You know, and they're not. It's not that they're not getting opportunities. I mean, you can talk about how good those qualities are, but the quality of shots are. But you know, if you look at the top 4 teams, the Maple Leafs have taken the most shots, which you'd expect. The Flames, the second, which you'd expect. Canucks are third. You know, they've taken more shots than the Florida Panthers in the same amount of games. That's pretty crazy. You know, like, and when we think about it, it's just like that really is like a number that you really have to ask yourself, like, what's wrong with when you're third most shots taken and then 4th worst defensive team. Something's up, you know. They're just not. I mean, scoring goals wise, I shouldn't say they're one of the worst offensive teams. Maybe they're right in the middle, but at the reality is, you know, it's just not good enough at all.
And the context of this is we expected them this season to, you know, start that they had turned the corner and they were ready to kind of climb. So I mean, that's the backdrop of this. The expectations were a lot higher than they've been recently.
I was super high on them, as you guys know. I picked them to win the division, and so I've watched them quite a bit. And I also don't quite get it. I mean, Ekman Larson obviously is not doing what he's. You know, Connor Garland still is. It's a good trade in my opinion.
No, Garland's doing fine.
I mean, you had to take Ekman Larson to get Connor Garland, and getting Connor.
No. That's okay. That's not the reason.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, that's baloney.
Why? Why do you say that's baloney?
Well, first of all, that deal was to dump all the bad contracts that they had, which was Louis Eriksson, Beagle, and Roussel. Okay, it was to get Connor Garland, and they immediately signed him. But they were expecting, hoping, praying that Ekman Larson was just his the last couple years in Arizona were just sort of apathetic because the Coyotes are such a bad organization. He's 30 years old, but remember, he's played a lot of hard minutes, 26, 27 minutes a night sometimes. And they were hoping, that it was just he needed a jump start. If this is truly the direction that he's going downhill, they're screwed because you're talking about 5 more years of albatross contract. They got rid of 3 albatrosses. Now they got one big one.
Yes, I mean, he's not going to be the point getter, but when you watch him play, Ekman Larson is not terrible. Like, I mean, you're talking, and I'm not saying you know, obviously for the money he's getting, you would want more, but he's still extremely serviceable as a top 4 defenseman. Like, there's no 2 ways about that.
No, he has to produce offensively.
But again, I really think, and I don't see, to get rid of all those contracts, you had to take him back. You had to. You had no way of not. He was part of that.
So if you took him back, knowing that he was going to be like a 25-point guy, then you don't make the trade, because even though you might be getting rid of a couple of contracts,
well, you got Connor Garland. I mean, that's the thing.
You also know, right? But you're also signing a future albatross, which we talked about. That this was a risky contract.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of circling around the idea. They thought he could still play, or they wouldn't have made that deal.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, they didn't think we were taking a bad contract here.
No, they definitely didn't think that. That's like, they should have thought about it a little more.
There's a lot of space and still can play, like what that means. And he still can play. There's no 2 ways about it. Like, he is not he's not going to be your big point getter, but he's not at the same time, you know, he's an albatross, but you got rid of bigger albatrosses that can't play. So why don't you? So I think at the end of the day, you know, you're looking at a guy who, you got Connor Garland and him. I still think it's an amazing trade. I don't know.
Oh, it's not
Well,
an amazing trade.
this is the issue with that deal, is the fact that, okay, yes, in terms of a net plus and minus in terms of salary, it was a wash. But all those contracts, Eriksson, Beagle, Roussel, all expired at the end of the year. With Ekman Larsson, he's under contract for another 5 years at $7.26 million. So you would have been over the bad contracts at the end of this year. They made this move. So now you've got the albatross for 5 more years. That's unacceptable. If that's the case, if this is what he truly is, then it's like having Louis Eriksson signed for 5
No,
years.
it's not. No, it's not. There's no way. I mean, Louis Eriksson was
I don't think it's the same either. But I don't know. I think I don't even know anymore what we're arguing anymore.
We're arguing about what's wrong with
Ekman, are you saying that they took Ekman Larsson knowing it was a risk to get Connor Garland? Is that your only point?
I'm saying that in order to get rid of what they had to get rid of and get Connor Garland, Ekman Larsson had to be involved.
So that I don't even think you can argue that, because that's true, because that's what the deal was.
Right. No, but I mean, that had to be. So they're taking him on saying, okay, he might not be worth what they're actually going to have to pay him, but he's going to be a top 4 defenseman for us. So a top 4 defenseman is a top 4 defenseman. Okay. I think that's how they looked at it.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that statement. I mean, that's they weighed it all out and decided that that he could still play. I think they
he'll be a top 4 defenseman on a bad team. That's what it'll be.
Yeah, I mean, I think all that, and they were going to get Connor Garland. I'm not going to argue that. Yeah, I thought we were arguing something else. So
we were also talking Hamanek. By the way, I don't know if you guys said this or not, because I was trying to get a couple statistics up. But Hamanek was recalled yesterday. You did see that, right?
Yes, but he doesn't even play.
Right. We don't know that, but for sure he was recalled for sure. So we're going to find out, right? We're going to find out if he can play, I guess. Yeah. I guess that's what's going to happen, right?
I'm less sold on him as a contributor than some people seem to be.
They signed a 2-year deal, Kev, so they did expect to get something out of him instead of this round and round and round.
It's also because they have a 3-game homestand. They're sending him down when they're on the road.
When they're on the road, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to find out what exactly is going on with his status crossing the border. Unless once he crosses the border, they won't let him back in because he's unvaccinated. It might be that. It could be that.
That could be it.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up something along the lines of this too, because I got a lot of heat about this over the weekend. And Kevin, I really wanted your opinion, because I think you're more in touch with this than anybody else. And that was when I wrote an article this weekend about who the starting goalie should be for Team USA in the Olympics. And I know we talked about this in our own chat, but I'm really sold right now that Campbell has to be leading the way in that. And I don't know, Kevin, what are your thoughts on this as far as?
No, I just don't think you're factoring in that it's they don't look at it as if we're a team and we're going to play the hot goalie. They look at it, there's some history involved, who has been involved in USA hockey program. I mean, ultimately they want to have the best goalie, and if there's one guy, but these guys are so close to one another that it does matter whether or not you've stepped up and played in the World Championships and done all that kind of stuff. So
Campbell has a good history with the juniors program.
Well, right,
for sure he does. Yeah, for sure he does.
But that was a decade ago,
right?
Still, that.
But he doesn't have as good a history as John Gibson does.
Okay.
And international competition. Wasn't I think didn't Gibson get a medal?
At
the World Championships. I'd have to look that up, but it feels like
Campbell. Yeah, I mean, Campbell won the juniors, right? Won the World Juniors.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, yes, I get what you're saying, Kevin, and I know that everybody has their own. We've talked about this many times. You have your NHL career and you have your international career.
But let me just put it in just real terms.
Yeah.
If you were playing one game, would you rather have Gibson or Campbell?
Campbell.
I would go Gibson.
Yeah, I would go Gibson too, with his history. And I mean, I'm not saying that Campbell's a bad guy, a bad goalie, but right now Gibson is on top of his game. He's
Campbell
looking strong.
the Campbell rebounds scare me a little more. He gives up some rebounds. He does.
Well,
Gibson is on top of his game, but his go ahead.
We're talking about a window of 30 games over the last 2 seasons.
Right.
I mean, I've watched all of them. I think he's been excellent for the league. But when we're talking about an Olympic situation, you're talking about one goaltender who won a Vezina Trophy and got his team past the vaunted Edmonton Oilers last year in the first round, and another goaltender who's carried Anaheim on his back until he's so tired that he can't carry them on their back anymore. I mean, I think Campbell's got an outside shot of being the third goaltender. I mean, I do too. Yeah, somebody in the chat said Spencer Knight, but Spencer Knight is a young goalie, and I don't know if they want to go down that road.
They're struggling a little right now, so they're not going to do it.
Right, and it's not going to be Demko based on the way he's playing. So Campbell's got an outside shot at the third goalie, but the starting goaltender for Game 1 in Beijing, if they even go, and we'll talk about that in a minute, is either Gibson or Hellebuck.
I mean, probably.
I know you don't like them, Mac, but they're the best. They're the best.
Not that I don't like them. It's not. I mean, it's not that I don't like them. There's an eye test you can do. It's pretty obvious right now. And when you watch these guys play, listen. The bottom line is USA needs a good goalie to win this tournament. I mean, they're going to need a goalie who's going to be on top of their game to win this tournament, right? And they're going to need a guy who's confident and a guy who can play against really skilled players and a guy who can make big saves in tough situations. When I watched 3 of them play, and I have watched, and I know I talk about Hellebuck. I don't think Hellebuck's a bad goalie at all. That's not what I've ever said. What I've said is I think Hellebuck's an overrated goalie in my opinion. But that based on the fact, and especially when you look at situations like this, and you can't draw all-star games into anything, correct? But the one thing you can draw from an all-star game is these high quality chances from really skilled players that happen all the time, and you get to see how good a goalie is side to side and how good he is positionally. Hellebuck's great positionally. He's the best of all of them positionally. There's no two ways about it. He's great positionally. The side to side with quickness when you're going up against the top players in the world every night. Campbell's faster than Hellebuck, and then Gibson might be faster than Campbell. That's possible, but Gibson's not as good positionally as Campbell is in my mind. If you want to,
I did look up the medals, and Gibson has more medals. He's got a U17, a U18, and a U20.
I mean, that's fine.
And they're all gold medals.
He won a bronze at the World Championships too.
Yeah. Okay, so he's got that too. So
he's got that. But at the end of the line, right now, the player who's playing by far the best. I mean, statistically, it's not even close. And
it's not even close between Gibson.
You can't say
statistically
that.
right now.
Say that.
Goals against average and save percentages are.
Oh my God!
I'm just saying statistically. Let's go statistically. Statistically, goals against average, right, between the 3 of them.
No, there's other statistics we could use here.
I know, but I'm just saying goals against average. Hellebuck.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that's the way they will choose the goalie. I think it will be body of work, and John Gibson. Has a history of performing well in international tournaments. He's, every year he's helped the Ducks stay competitive in games. And,
he has.
He's good again this year. He's on a hot streak. He's playing well.
His goals against is 2.49, Kev, this year.
I got 2.37.
2.37. All right. So since I did it 2 days ago, it's gone down.
Yeah, 924 save percentage. Campbell's, I think, is 936.
936, 1.8.
939.
You're talking about 16 games. Of the
season.
But
I'm talking about. I think
Campbell
is one of the worst teams defensively, also in the midst of all this, and that he's putting up these numbers.
You think Anaheim is one of the great defensive?
Yeah. Oh no. I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying that when you look at what's happening with the two of them have to face a ton of shots.
It's a miracle that John Gibson has a 917 save percentage for his career. It's a miracle.
Yeah, it really is. And here's what I would say about that. Look, I get it. You played the position. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm just saying when that group gathers, they won't look at Campbell the same way you are right now.
I know that.
They'll look at him as a little less proven than John Gibson, and these guys, and I know that you're right about that.
And remember the perception of Campbell this is really his first year as a starter. Up until last year, when Frederick Anderson went down to injury, he was a backup. He was a career backup. That's all the mindset of his was. And then Anderson goes down. He has to take over the number one job. He plays great. He plays well in the playoffs. Now he's the number one. And the Leafs didn't even have the confidence to make him the number one. They went out and signed Mrazek, so they had a 1A, 1B.
That was obviously a bad call.
So
yeah.
Well, no. Based on his injury history, it wasn't a bad call.
Well,
now,
injuries, okay, got it. Granted, injuries are for sure, but there's no question who's the better goalie right now, Campbell or Mrazek, right? That's not in.
Mrazek's been hurt, so yeah.
And even when Mrazek's healthy, I mean, come on, it's not even close. I mean, right now,
well,
but we do have another big issue. If you're done, I'm not sure if you're done. The PK.
No, I am done. I mean, my point. This is my point. I mean, my point is like, listen. I mean, I know that all these things, and Kevin. I know Kevin knows this 100%, and you're right. Whatever Kevin Allen's saying in this situation is 100% right. I'm just bringing up I'm saying my opinion on this is what it is, because based on watching these guys play, and I think that Campbell is not getting the credit for where the Maple Leafs are right now, because I've watched them a ton, Mike. I haven't watched as much as you have, but I've watched 80% of their games from beginning to end, and without Campbell right now, the Leafs are nowhere near where they are right now.
Without Campbell, the starting goalie would be Michael Hutchinson. So
no, but I mean, but with a regular goalie, like if you throw back Anderson from last year, whatever, Campbell has been unbelievable. Like he has made, he's been incredible, and
he's been really good. I'm not disputing that.
Same argument for the Ducks. The Ducks are playing way above their heads, and Gibson is the reason.
Yeah, Gibson's part of it, but I mean, I'm watching them play. I don't think he's as big a part as Campbell.
Oh, I think he might be a bigger reason.
Not in the beginning of the season, at least. Not so far this year.
They don't have an offense like Toronto's.
Right. And basically the reason that they're scoring is they have enough trust in Gibson that they have the ability to counterattack because they have that guy back there.
Yeah,
the Leafs are better defensively. The Leafs are not the Leafs of 3 years ago. They're better defensively now than they were in the past. They don't have Jake Gardiner playing on defense anymore. They have they have guys who can actually play, like Muzzin and Brody, who can actually play on the blue line. So
True.
Anyway, Go ahead.
Here's one more. Let me give you just a scenario though that I think will please you, because and when I tell it to you, everyone will recognize that it's true. In a short tournament though, you say they bring in Hellebuck, Gibson, and Campbell are their goalies,
right?
And if they give Gibson the start,
right? They just locked up for a second. Just give it a second.
Yep. All right.
Okay, I'm back. But they give him the start. He plays poorly. Like, is it unthinkable that Campbell could end up, getting the net in a short tournament? No, I mean that could happen. I mean, you make decisions quickly in tournaments, and
I mean, if he's not one of the three, that's just ridiculous to me. Like, and I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, here's the shots against. You're looking at two of the teams that have given up the most shots against in the Ducks and the Leafs. They're both right in the top five. There's no question they're both getting pounded with shots, right? So, but Hellebuck has been really unimpressive. Honestly, his 2.87 goals against average on a team that's, I think, better than the Ducks. Is Hellebuck's been struggling. He has, and his positional play, the way he plays. I mean, every success the USA has been with a goalie that's good positionally and quick side to side. And like Miller and Quick, these are two great positional, great side to side goalies. Quick not so much positionally as Miller's better, but at the end of the day, they don't have anybody quicker than Campbell. That's my opinion. But we'll move on. Russ, go ahead.
Yeah. So PK Subban, we talked about him the other day with the dirty play with Sammy Blais. Now Sammy Blais is out for the season with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
League didn't do anything after the game. Way before they announced this, they asked Gerard Gallant, what is the status of Sammy Blais? And he goes, it doesn't look good. And the reason Gerard Gallant said it doesn't look good is because Gerard Gallant wanted the league to do something about it. He wanted the league to relook at the issue, to say that his team had been attacked by Subban twice this year. Yeah. Ryan Reeves, who he put out for a few weeks, and then this. And I think he's had two other dirty plays this year already, and nothing has happened to PK Subban. So now what do you think is going to happen? And this is March now. Now it's March. for the next Devils-Rangers game. But what do you think is going to happen in that game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Kev, I can't put PK Subban. You know how I like to follow my usual thought process of the star player not getting penalized. He's not a star player anymore. He used to be. He's not one anymore. And he, when I saw what he did to Blais, I said Matt Cook part 2 because I thought it was an Achilles, but it turned out to be a knee injury. Because the NHL is now like, we don't want you to take retribution on the ice. Let us do that. We'll take care of it. Well, they haven't taken care of it there. So if Ryan Reeves is in the lineup when they play the Devils in March, he's going to go at PK Subban. He's going to have to.
Yeah, no, they will. And I looked at it too. I thought it was suspension worthy.
Yeah.
And this season, Subban has had a couple of. He was gotten fined twice, correct?
I don't think he got fined for a high stick earlier.
The fines just don't mean anything, like that's
right. Yeah, okay, fine me, fine.
No, but I mean, it establishes a pattern, in my opinion, and his pattern stretches back, years for this. So, yeah, and if the league wants it to look like the Wild West again, all it has to do is to continue to ignore the on-ice infractions, which are happening and not being punished.
Yeah.
I usually have been supportive. It's a hard job to do, but this season I've been really disappointed by the rulings that we've seen in terms of there just seem to be far too lenient to the assailant.
Yeah, and there was another instance last night that I told Russ about that. I'm a little surprised I haven't heard anything about the Department of Player Safety bringing it up. Brock Nelson in the Islanders Tampa Bay game hit Alex Killorn head high along the wall. A Island defenseman engaged with Killorn, and Nelson comes in and hits him high along the wall, and he goes down. But he was unhurt, at least it appeared unhurt. And Anthony Cirelli came to his teammates' rescue, dropped the gloves, and went at Nelson right away. Now, okay, there's history with these teams. They've had 2 playoff series. Killorn was probably a big part of both victories. I don't have the stats, but I'm sure he was. I know he was in one of them, and he scored some key goals. This is the kind of stuff. Okay, where's the suspension? Where's the fine? Where's the 5 minutes?
Suspensions we're looking for. Forget the fines. I mean, even the Crosby play again, Kev, we brought it up yesterday, where he gets Martin Fehervary and he puts him head first into the boards. Nothing.
Yeah, and we saw that earlier too with the play on Dylan Larkin that he ended up getting the suspension for the punch, but there was no penalty on the fact that he got his head rammed in the boards after, having to rehab and wear a surgical collar all summer, even though he didn't have surgery. But and the reason almost everybody agreed on the Red Wings that had there been a penalty even called on that play, Larkin would not have punched Joseph on the play. And again, as Blashill, the coach, said, these players are going to police it themselves if you don't do it. And the 2 players involved, by the way, ended up having a cell phone conversation, or no, it was texting conversation where they both apologized for their actions. But you've got to nip it in the bud on the ice, or you're going to have chaos. And I'm fearful, just as you guys laid out, that if Subban doesn't get punished, I mean, someone's going to have to do something, particularly with the Rangers' history. So I agree with you that, now we're going to have chaos will ensue the next time they play.
Right. All right. So it's not often that the NHL makes CNN, but the NHL pausing the Ottawa Senators season due to COVID-19 did make CNN. Kev, you wrote a really good article about it in Hockey Buzz about how you felt it was ridiculous that they were allowed to play that one night. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it just was common sense. Like the thing that bothered me is, look, I don't think we need to panic about COVID. I thought the NHL had handled it well up to then. Look, you get 2 or 3 guys, you get them out of out of the dressing room. You can still play. These guys are all vaccinated for the most part. And you continue on. But 9 guys is 9 guys.
Right.
So there's the competitive aspect of it. And imagine if that was in the Metropolitan Division where, every point is going to matter. And, as it turned out, Ottawa was not going to make the playoffs, so probably won't have an impact. But it really wasn't fair to them. Did they really have any chance to win that game?
No.
I'd say no. And they played their hearts out, and they lost 2-0. But, they really had no chance. Now, do you think the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have had all kinds of COVID issues, and I know for a fact that Mike Sullivan had a real tough go of it with his round of COVID, and Chris Letang, of course, came out and talked about how difficult it was for him. Now, for the most players, have been asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic. So, I mean, that really isn't the issue. The issue here is you still don't want it to go run rampant in the Kings dressing room or the Penguins dressing room again. And you don't know they won't, because you could have predicted, and we did, that the Senators were going to have more of these cases because they've been around together for forever. So,
well, the thing is that this. Okay, I agree with the assessment that they should have never played that game because they had so many players in COVID protocol. But this tendency started before this, when San Jose had 5 players and I think an assistant coach who were all in COVID protocol, and they had to call up half of the San Jose Barracudas of the AHL to play the game. And then the Barracudas had to cancel their game because they didn't have enough players.
Right.
I mean, you get the trend here. This is the thing that, it's all, I mean, go ahead, Kevin.
I do. I see your point, but I also see the point of you got to walk the line a little bit. And I don't know where it is, but I 5 I think is okay, but 9 isn't. I know that. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think you got to try, to be aggressive and to keep the ball rolling. I commend them for doing what they've done thus far. But, there was a line, and, it was clearly, they went too far with the Senators thing. Yeah. And, it's just ridiculous how that they had to play with that few guys. And I don't know what's going on with San Jose. They haven't had any more cases, have they, or have they?
Not that I've heard.
Not that I've heard.
Pretty remarkable.
So they've got it, that kind of under control.
Seems like
amazing. But and then the complication of this, and it's been talked about on Twitter, is obviously the Olympic Games. But I'm of the mind of
we pause for a second.
Okay. Let's guess what he's going to say. I'm on the mind.
The league does not want a war with the players. Yeah. And the players want to go. So, and they really don't. They don't want to fight about this. So I don't think there's going to be any great movement, unless it's suddenly the pandemic, we go back to in time and we're, where we were before, but I don't see how that could happen. But I still think we're going to go, even if they end up having to cancel, some games, because I think they know that the players really want to go. So
how deep do you think the lists are, though, Kev? Because I have a feeling there will be players that last minute are just pulled because of protocol or whatever.
Yeah, I think they'll be real deep, and I also think they're acknowledged. I know for a fact that the U.S. Olympic team in all sports are just preparing for the idea that athletes are going to be ruled out of the games. You're going to get there, and it's just going to happen because there's enough breakthrough positives that we know it's just going to happen, and they're in close quarters. They'll be in the Olympic Village, and you're going to be in contact with other athletes, so something's going to give here. So I do think there'll be a much deeper list. And I think before, when they would tell people, well, you're the 27th man on a 25-person roster, that person said, well, I got no chance. Now that person will say, I might end up over there.
Right.
So it's amazing. To be honest, I've heard that the players were still, even though they knew what it's going to be like over there. I was just told recently by someone who's going to be involved, that he was disappointed that there is complete mask wearing everywhere you go, even though every athlete has to be vaccinated. So
really, that's disappointing.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's
disappointing for me to hear him say that.
Yeah. He just felt that since we're all going to be vaccinated, we ought to be able to be without a mask. So
does anybody ever think about that 38% that even if you are triple vaxxed, there's still like a 38% chance you could pass it on to somebody, or if you wear a mask, you might not at all. Might be 0%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
well, such political football.
It's ridiculous. I think also the fact is like Russ, you and I've talked about this before. I really like not getting colds. Like I don't mind.
Me too.
I don't mind wearing masks. Like I really don't love getting sick. Like it's not even if it's not COVID or whatever.
Yeah, I also like breathing, and that's
but I don't have masks. I don't have issues with breathing.
Let me tell you a story of what my cardiologist told me. I went in to see him, and you have to wear a mask. And he comes in, he's got a mask, and I got a mask, and he said that one of the things he said, "Are you bothered wearing a mask?" I said, "No, I can really get comfortable." And he goes, "Yeah, here's what I tell people: if you have trouble breathing through a mask, you should come and see me." Because the people who have trouble with masks are, people who have issues. Like you shouldn't have trouble breathing through a mask.
Well, my problem is it's tough to
clog up your glasses.
Exactly.
I have that problem for sure.
I have to angle my glasses like I'm a 75-year-old man.
That would be the greatest invention of the 21st century if someone could truly cure that, but nobody seems to be able to.
Yeah, and I've even tried the the spray stuff that guys use on their shields, in hockey games. I've tried that too. I tried that plexiglass spray on my glasses. Yeah, it doesn't
Did it work?
No, it didn't work, which is crazy to me because if you can play ice hockey with it, and sweat like crazy in that environment, I'm sure as hell should be able to work on my stupid little glasses. Don't you think?
Yeah, this whole thing with Kuznetsov is the biggest joke in the world.
Yeah. We mentioned this last week, and there was a 4-year international ban, and of course because Evgeny Malkin might be 50-50 to play in the Olympics, they're scrambling now because they don't have enough centers.
So we're gonna. Do they call it the Russian Olympic Committee? Is the name of it now? That's like, really, what are we doing? Like, is that like, what's the difference between that and Russia? Players from Russia, I get that, or whatever. People who happen to be from Russia, whatever you want to call the team, but the Russian Olympic Committee.
Yeah, the whole thing is ridiculous. It's a penalty without a penalty. Like they're still representing Russia. They still see themselves as representing Russia. I don't even know why they're competing.
I don't know if you guys.
It's amazing. We don't have another player or any players from other countries with this situation except for Russia, and they get away with it. Like Kevin said, it's a slap on the wrist.
Do people remember that they basically drugged almost every member of the Russian team in the Sochi Olympics?
There's a hell of a documentary out there on this too. I'll try to remember what it was called for next show, but I watched it recently on the whole drugging of how Russian players, when they didn't know what they were being drugged when they were kids, and all the different things about it. It's an amazing documentary. It's
before we go, I want to bring up something I think is kind of interesting. I watched the Bruins documentary. It was on NHL Network, and it was the rival of Bobby Orr and all that. Yeah. And there was an interview with Bobby about winning a trophy, and he says, "Well, the trophy I really want to win is the cup."
Right.
Now, I found that interesting because, having covered the league now for going on 40 years, I can tell you that the popularity of the cup, the cup becoming a rock star, really has only happened in the last couple of decades. Like I remember in the 80s, like the cup would be on display in the West End and there was no lines to see it. I remember coming home late from the tavern at Sherlock Holmes in Edmonton with a writer, and there was like a 14-year-old guarding the cup. And Tom McMillan and I, who was a writer at the time, he's retired now. He ended up the Penguins executive. We asked whether we could look at the cup, and he brought it out, and we sat on a chair and inspected the names. Now it's there's no way. Like it's the romance of the cup is so great now. And, it's not that they didn't want to win a championship back then. They did. But I didn't sense back in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s that they talked about the cup with the same reverence that we now have. Yeah, now it's like sacred. And so
when did that start?
I'll tell you when I think it started. I think it started in 94 because there's a story where Tim Robbins is in New York City and he goes to a taxi. He gets into a taxi and he goes, "Take me to the Stanley Cup." And the cab driver knew where the cup was. And then it ended up at a strip club. Then it ended up everywhere. But the coverage that team got with the Stanley Cup, coupled with the lockout that, ensued until the next season started, that cup got a lot of coverage. And it was in a lot of places. And then we saw it was dented. Yeah. And that's when I felt like I started to see this party, jovial atmosphere around the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it obviously didn't start in 91 or 92 when it was at the bottom of Mario Lemieux's pool. But
yeah. Well, I will say too, I think the Hall of Fame played a role in this. When they moved into the new facilities they put the cup in the bank vault, and they sort of was the first. They started to sort of treat the cup like a rock star. This is the cup.
And that's not even the real cup. The one.
No, and
it is sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yes. And the room's beautiful because it's got like a hole in the ceiling and the sun shining on it.
Yeah.
It's like the Ark of the Covenant.
It is.
Well, and they started to publicize too the the trips that the cup takes, and we started to see commercials with Phil Pritchard. Going around the world in the white gloves, and they've done a great job. Like, you really couldn't market anyone any better than they've marketed the cup.
I mean,
like,
the only thing I could say to show you the comparison, when Eli Manning and the Indianapolis Colts won, I remember they were celebrating in a supermarket. They had the Lombardi Trophy in a supermarket.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I might be wrong about this, but like when the Flyers won the Stanley Cup, was that the first time that like the fans were on the ice with the cup, like in mass numbers, like that, or is that something that happened all the time?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Have you seen those pictures, right, where the players are skating the cup with and they're trying to get through the fans as they're skating it? That felt like a moment like where the cup was,
maybe I just don't know. I should know that, but I don't. I know that Ted Lindsay was the first to carry the cup, and then even though he carried it and took it to the chicken wire, that what used to be the plexiglass, or what the plexiglass is today, chicken wire, and fans could put their hands and touch the cup. Yes. But after he did that, it didn't start right away. Campbell used to just go and put it on the table, and they would take photos, and it would stay on the table. And the players...
honestly, again, I think it started in the Bettman era because I think it started also with him announcing, who's the MVP, the Conn Smythe, and everybody booing him. I think that all played into it too.
I thought I remembered the Islanders, the Islanders dynasty carrying the cup around. Maybe I'm wrong, but Kev, the one thing about that documentary that really shocked me. I had seen video of the famous Bobby Orr getting checked by Pat Quinn in the '69 playoffs. A cheap hit when they were down 6-0 and knocking them out, and the ensuing bench clearing brawl that happened. Forbes Kennedy punched a linesman. Okay. Tom Lysiak got suspended for 40 games, I think it was, tripping a linesman. And this guy waylaid a linesman in this bench clearing brawl. And I don't think anything happened to him other than maybe a fine. I mean,
well, my favorite, and to be honest with you, I missed about 15 minutes of it. So if this story was in there, I don't know that, but it's one of my favorite Bruins stories of all time, and Derek Sanderson told it to me about when the Bruins brought in all their prospects to play a game. I think it was before a Bruins game. But Derek Sanderson recalls his dad calling him out of the dressing room and pulling him outside, and he said, "Derek, there's only two people that the Boston fans are going to remember tonight: Bobby Orr and the guy that challenges him to a fight. and so Derek Sanderson went out there, and you can guess what happened. So,
and Derek Sanderson was crazy enough to do it. He's a great guy, but man, he was he was like the Joe Namath of hockey. He really was. Joe Namath was getting all the headlines,
right?
And then all of a sudden, Derek Sanderson started getting the headlines, wearing the jackets.
Well, he hung around with Joe.
He did hang around with Joe too.
Yeah, they were a club together. Yeah.
Well, one of the other thing, I've done some really big features on him, and one I remember in particular was, obviously he had a lot of financial problems. He went through a lot of money, and he had bought a lot of things like a Rolls Royce, and he bought a farm back in his in Canada and everything else. And so he would go back to the farm, and he ended up he had a truck too that he used on the farm, but he needed money so badly that he had to sell the truck because he couldn't get anybody in Canada to buy the Rolls Royce. So he had to bale hay one time, and he actually had to use the Rolls Royce to get the hay back to the barn. So I'll never forget that story. So he's driving on his farm with a Rolls Royce because he couldn't sell it, but he could sell the truck.
That guy lived life fast and hard. That was Derek.
He did.
Right.
Yeah, he did.
So Kevin, when did when did your Stanley Cup book come out?
Which one?
This is right here. So this is the one. I mean, I have a couple, right? So this is the one I was
why is
thinking
the
of.
Stanley Cup in Mary Lemieux's pool? Is that the one? Yeah.
Yep.
That came out in the early 90s, right after that.
Right.
And it's my favorite Cup story of all time because it involves Phil Bork and the crux. And to be honest with you, I had to fight with the publisher. And by the way, I've been with Triumph Books for like 30 years now. I've written so many books for them. But at that time, they wanted to call it Great Stanley Cup Tales. And I said, no. You got to call it Why is the Stanley Cup in Mary Lemieux's Pool? And it's my all-time. Yeah, and I had to fight with him on it. I mean, we really argued about it, and we finally got him to do it. But the story is, and it's a really good one. They're celebrating, and I've been to Mario Lemieux's house. He still lives there, as far as I know, unless he's moved in the last couple of 3 years. And he's got this pool, and he has a waterfall at the end of the pool that you can sort of stand on, and you can dive in. And they were all having fun, and the cup was, being carried around the pool and everything. And Phil Bork, who was a really important role player on that team, he's now, of course, an analyst on radio. He took the Stanley Cup, climbed up onto the waterfall, and much like King Kong, stood up there with the cup over his head and said, "Look at me, boys." But instead of
freaking that's
everybody laughed as the Stanley Cup sunk to the pool. But what they didn't know, and this was the better part of the story, is the cup formed a suction on the bottom of the pool. So they assembled into diving teams. They had 3 or 4 3-man teams, and they went down and they finally pried it off the bottom. But it was askew, and it was hanging on by a thread. So if you look at the parade photos the next day, when the guys are picking it up, they're hanging on to that cup part of it with all they could because it was going to fall off if they didn't. That's how big.
I always said that Lemieux house looks like stately Wayne Manor, like Bruce Wayne lived there.
That book to me was like one of that book, and then the essay written by Frank Brown about the Stanley Cup around the same time.
Very good.
Around the same time were two of the things that I first read as a youngster that kind of romanticized the Stanley Cup. That was something that, and I think that you guys had a part in this. I really do, because I think that was something that actually did, romanticize it. And now, and then of course the NHL with all the commercials, with television, and they've done some great commercials with the Stanley Cup too, and it's just built up. The whole thing is just built and built and built. And it's just, and they've taken the fact that they have the one thing they have over any other sport. No other sport has a trophy that can compare to it. Like no other major sport has a trophy. Others have tried. Like others have tried to put trophies together even. But
when you have a commissioner of one sport referring to the trophy as what did Rob Manfred say? A hunk of tin, Russ?
He did, yes.
So when you have that, then it's not exactly. The NFL, the NFL trophy the Vince Lombardi Trophy isn't exactly. It doesn't.
No, it's
you know,
it's a
Yeah,
football.
well,
No, but I will tell you this: if the Stanley Cup wasn't an actual cup and you couldn't drink and eat out of it, and it was some other type of object, it wouldn't be as popular.
That's
yeah.
interesting, too.
One more Stanley Cup tale. I know we're running late, but it is a good one. One of my all-time favorite assignments was going to hang out with Bob Hartley when he celebrated the Cup for a couple of days in Quebec, Hawkesbury, Quebec, including going to the factory where he worked there. It's a windshield wiper factory, and everybody got excited. But my best moment was he told me to meet him at his house at 6 a.m., and I was there promptly, which he appreciated. And he said we were going to go to breakfast. Well, I thought we would probably go to a restaurant and, he would carry it in and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we walked about 18 steps from his front porch to his neighbor's porch. We went in the house, and a man and his wife were cooking bacon and eggs. And they put the cup in the center of the small table, and we sat, the four of us, down and ate breakfast with the Stanley Cup in the middle of bacon and eggs. And at one point I said, is there anything more Canadian than this? I mean,
No,
it was
No,
a great moment.
What would be more Canadian, Kev, is if it was Pimeo bacon and not American bacon.
Yeah,
There you
for
I
sure.
mean, one thing that we'll get out, but the one thing that strikes me about the Stanley Cup, and I've said this before, when you're on the ice with it, and when it's won the actual cup, and you're there and you see it, it does strike you as an antique more than you would think.
Yeah.
More than you think it would. Like it does, because when you're watching on TV, you see it as this big shiny thing. It feels like something that would have been like in your grandparents' cabinet in a smaller version of it. You know what I mean? But just like the reality is, it does feel like an antique in really cool ways. I do have one more thing I have to show you guys, because I do promise I'd show them. I know we're running along, but so there's a group of Hockey Buzz fans in Turkey, the country Turkey, and
Let's send them stuffing.
yeah, they knew that I was a fan of the Nintendo ice hockey game. I don't know if you guys remember Nintendo ice hockey, but Nintendo ice hockey was like the big. You got to pick the big guy, the little guy, or the small guy, medium-sized guy. So it actually looked like this, right? This is the game itself. And for those of you who don't remember it, it's coming up now. It should come up in a second. Now I'm sharing it. Here it is. So it looked like
the
that.
graphics are fantastic.
Yeah, and it was really fun. Till this day, I play this game with my son all the time. It's great stuff, right? So they sent me this, which I think is the coolest thing. Came from Turkey. So this is a diorama, okay?
Oh gosh,
of that game. So
Wow.
it's like they like cut. They take out. It's a box. It's really cool. It's this box, and it's just a diorama of
that's tremendous.
3D version of that game. Isn't that cool?
I don't know anyone that gets such cool things come to their house the way you do. Because you either order them or people send them to you.
I make friends. I'm a Game of Thrones share. Come on. All right.
Yeah.
I can't even get a couch that I bought and paid for to be delivered to my house.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, it's
that's
coming.
all the time we have for today. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. There's a lot of games tonight, so enjoy yourself. Go Andrew Mangiapiani in Philadelphia. We'll see what happens.